Hello, I am here helping you get some skills in order to do the recent project we've assigned called the Travl project. And I have here a copy of the worksheet you have available to you on the website and also in a hard copy that explains all the directions and questions of information that you need, and we are going to be using that today. On another tab, I have a time zone chart, which can be found also in your textbook, which I'm going to spend some time talking about because the first task asks you to discuss how far the time difference is between the places you're going to travel. And I have open a few Google tabs to be able to get us some information. And so I'm just going to take you through a sample today of one city and how you would do the first part of the task. You need to understand that each week you're going to be traveling to a different city and staying in that city from Tuesday to Friday. And I've split up different things you should focus on each day. But you sort of, and in a normal traveling situation, you would plan ahead a lot further than we're going to plan ahead. And also, you would have many more days, I'm sure, to do some of the things you'd like to do. But I'm trying to get you a small sample of the kinds of information you can find about different places in the world. So for our sample purposes, we're going to pretend that we're traveling Tuesday of this week, which means that we want to arrive on the 5th. We'll be there January 6th and 7th, and then be returning Friday, January 9th. So when I plan my trip, I'm going to keep those dates in mind. So the first thing I'm going to consider is reading all the questions before I start my task. And in fact, I would even look at the tasks for the other days, because you can break these up and do a task each day. Or since you'll be finding out the city you're assigned on the Friday at the end of the week for the following week, you might choose to do it over the weekend and do it all at once. And you might be coming across valuable information that you can use or store away for another task. So the first day and the first task we're going to focus today is the actual travel. We're going to need to find things like how we're going to show our route on a map. So we know we need a map. Starting in New York City, technically we're going to start our travel from Newark, but it doesn't matter whether you pick Newark or New York City. And we're going to be answering the questions right on this sheet today. We're going to need to find out the flight and the airline, if there's any stops on our flight in different cities, how much the flight costs, and we have to keep in mind that we're flying back on Friday night. That'll be an important question when you want to choose a flight. The distance we travel, we're going to find out. How long it takes to get there will be pretty much in our flight information. But we have to keep in mind that we have to get there by Tuesday at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So if we're looking at flights and they don't get there by then, we may have to fly Monday night, which means when we talk about where we're staying, we have to include Monday night in our estimates. So then we're going to talk a little bit today about time differences. Just a preview of what's coming, we want to know about weather, land, and animals. This is the physical part of where you're staying, not the people or culture. So we're going to need a weather report. We're going to be looking for that on Wednesday in a new video, and talk about what the weather is going to be like in the particular week we're working in, so we can decide what kind of clothing. If there was a special day we wanted to do something, what would be the best day. We need another map, and to talk about the landforms and waterways, and what kind of animals. This is an interesting question, and we might get into, if it's a very urban area, maybe a zoo, and what they feature in their zoo would be a better choice, since there won't be many animals out and about. We're also going to be looking at where to stay and what we're going to be eating. So as you come across interesting information about the food in your city or the hotels, you can save that. We remember that we're trying to stay for 3 nights, but oftentimes you'll need to stay for 4 or even 5 nights if you can't get a flight to work on Friday in the evening. If there's no flights Friday night, you may have to stay till Saturday morning. So that number might change depending on your city. We also need a map of the city. So this is another map. Each day there's going to be a map and a little report due about a paragraph long. I'm going to model how to do that. The maps can be printed straight from the internet, or you can just sketch a map by hand. We're gonna maybe modify within walking distance because it's a little bit hard, especially in cities that have that aren't in English, to figure out the distance of specifically which restaurant we want. And on Friday, the focus is going to be on what we're going to do in the city. Again, we're only going to plan to do things for one day, although normally you would do things over several days in a visit to a city. And this is the place where you really get to personalize what you'd like to know about the people, culture, and history. I'm picking cities that are common cities that we might travel for business. Some are a little less common, and you might find out really interesting things. You have to understand we're trying to focus on this project with families in mind and children. Oftentimes cities have some violence to them or some adult kinds of activities that wouldn't be appropriate for us to talk about in class. So we're keeping in mind that we're trying to make this really school friendly. So we will talk more Friday about the kinds of things that you might want to do or learn about when you get to a city. So let's go back to our first questions of today. The travel detail for Tuesday. For our sample today, we're going to pick London, United Kingdom. So I would go to a Google search and just type in flights to London from Newark. You could even put in New York City. Now, in most cases, what's going to come up is Google will give you a box where they summarize some information about flights. And for our purposes, this is useful information for this project. If the box doesn't come up because it's an uncommon city that this isn't organized on Google for, then you may need to get more specific, and I'll try to model one of those. But London is a pretty common city. So they're listing here all the different airways that fly, how long it takes, and the price. We're not making this a math or budget project, so just pick a random, middle of the road, not the most expensive, not the least expensive price. As you can see, these are all priced the same, which means they're competing with each other. It's a very common route from New York to London. So I'm just going to pick US Airways today. And what happens is that you get another tab where you have to put in some information, so you have to know how some of this works. Number one, here's a map, which you may want to click on and make a note of, either print or copy, which will meet that requirement of having a map. And you can see that we're going to fly from New York over the Atlantic Ocean to London. Excuse me. So, and this is an interesting way to look at the different flights and costs if you were to book on different days. The way we're doing this project, it's going to be a very expensive flight because we are booking so close to when we are planning to travel. So here's our choices. It says we could leave at 6:30 p.m. I have here, now interestingly, you have to pay attention to this, it pops up with a date that they think you might be planning for. We have to put in the date that we want. So we're actually planning, we're going to say Tuesday the 6th, and we're going to plan to come back according to our project guidelines on Friday. So we're going to put in the information of Friday, January 9th. So these now become your choices for what you could do. Now, if I leave at 6:30 p.m., and interestingly, we put in US Airways, but it's coming up with British Airways, and that's fine. If I leave at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 6th, I'm actually going to arrive at 6:30 a.m. the next day, Wednesday. And the same thing, if I leave at 9:20, I'm going to arrive the next day. We're going to talk about why that is. It's an overnight flight. It's a long distance. And but we don't want to arrive the next day in the morning on Wednesday, because it'll be too late for our project. So because of this, you need to back up the day to Monday. You're going to need to fly on Monday. Notice now there's no results for our criteria. So we're going to clear the filters of what we said we wanted, and it gives you some more choices. So we're going to look here, and we can see that United Airlines has a flight leaving at 9:20 p.m. and now we're talking about Monday, January 5th. That does arrive Tuesday at 9:25. Also one at 10 that arrives at 10. So let's just pick the first one, and we're going to talk about it now. When you're picking flights, before they can tell you how much they cost, you also have to pick your return flight. So we're going to choose a return flight for Friday, knowing that in this project, we're going to try to design something fun to do Friday, so we don't want to leave any earlier than 6 p.m. And technically, in reality, it would take a few hours to get to the airport, but we're not going to be that technical. So we would pick a 6 p.m. flight to return. Now we have our basic information of are traveling, and it has some prices here. I don't want you to really book the flight. Your parents would get really upset with that. So we are going to book with United. We could choose either of these. Again, we're not trying to be too picky here. Now, this is actually what it looks like when we are going to book the ticket, and so we're just traveling as one adult. Now, obviously, you are children, but a child wouldn't fly alone, so we're pretending we're an adult for this project. And the cost is $1,846.40. You will get a range of costs, and your partners might get different costs depending on flight. We're just trying to get estimates here. We don't have to be too picky. So we have some information now to put on our notes page. We have our flight, which is the flight details are we're leaving on United Airways, right? United Airways, flight 942, and we're returning also on United Airways, but I think the question only asks for how you're leaving to get there. So United Airways, flight 942, the distance that we're traveling is an important question that is addressed here, 3,466 miles. The time we're traveling is here. So let's take some of this information and put it on our notes, which you might be doing by hand or maybe on your worksheet. Remember, you need to reuse this worksheet for each of the cities, so you might want to do this on a separate paper. So the flight and airline we will take is United Airways, flight 942, from Newark to London. And just because I'm going to find this information later, I'm going to make it red so that I can find it easier later. Okay. The flight's going to cost, let's go back to that. Here it is. The flight costs $1,846, and again, the cost changes if you add insurance and other kinds of things. We're just going to go with that estimate. Okay, so the notes say, you know, the flight, the cost, it is non-stop, which means we're not going to stop in any cities along the way. I will show you in another sample what to do if you are stopping in another city. We know how much it costs and when we're flying back. The distance we will travel is 3,466 miles. 3,466 miles one way. And again, I'm making that red just so I can find it when I go to make notes about it. How long it will take to get there is 7 hours and 5 minutes. Okay. And now I'm going to take a break because I can see that my time is running out on this video, and I'm going to redo a second video to help you practice time differences. So for now, this was a video to help you use some basic searching tools to get some of the information we need for our project. You can review the video if you have questions. We will also be doing some other videos with other examples. Thank you.